What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the Samsung Galaxy S10 versus the Poco X3 Pro. So the question is, should you get a older flagship phone like the S10 or should you get the Poco X3 Pro, a newer mid-ranger? So I do want to break down the price. So the Poco is going to be around that $260 price point. I have the links down below. The S10 will be around that $200 price point if you get it refurbished. I did a whole refurbished unboxing if you want to check that out. Yeah, so let's start with hardware. So you have a full premium design on the S10. It's a glass and metal phone, IP68 dust and water resistant. And on the Poco, it's a plastic build, IP53. So the overall build quality of the S10 is going to be much better, just because you're feeling that glass and metal, and it just feels more premium as well. Power button, volume rockers, Bixby button. The S10 also retains its headphone jack, stereo speakers, and USB Type-C. On the Poco, it is a slightly bigger phone than the S10. And it's a little bit heavier as well because it has such a massive battery in it, which we'll talk about. But I do like on the Poco that they have the fingerprint scanner in the power button. I think that is an awesome thing. That is one of my favorite things about the design. Power button or volume rockers, and you also retain your headphone jack on the Poco here. USB Type-C and stereo speakers are on board. So let's go ahead and discuss display quality here. So on the Poco, you do have an IPS LCD panel at 120 Hz, HDR10 at 6.67 inches, and it's a 1080p panel, $395 for the PPI. The S10 has a dynamic AMOLED display, HDR10 Plus, at 6.1 inches, 1440p display with 550 for the PPI. So the display situation is actually very interesting. So we have a much bigger display on the Poco, but it's an IPS panel, so colors are not going to look that good, and brightness is not going to be as good as it is on the S10. And plus you have HDR10 Plus on the S10 as well. And the 1440p versus the 1080p, yes, you can see that difference. The S10 is just much clearer when you're looking at, just anything, video games, watching TV, whatever you're doing on your phone. Everything seems like more clear on the S10. You also have a slight curve on the S10's display as well, which is not really bothersome. They both have punch holes as well on them. The punch hole on the Poco is slightly smaller than the S10. Overall display quality is going to be to the S10. Now here is the interesting thing about the Poco display versus the S10. So on the Poco you have 120 Hz and you have no high refresh rate on the S10. That is a very interesting decision to make because a lot of people want high refresh rate these days, and let me know down below, is that something you guys care about? So basically you really feel the high refresh rate when you're just scrolling through your home page, and it really comes into notoriety here if we're like in a social media application and we're just scrolling up and down like that. The phone just feels very silky, buttery smooth. So that is one thing to take into consideration. Now me personally, I'm definitely going with a 1440p display. It's AMOLED and plus it's a 2K display. So me personally, I can do without the high refresh rate. Now if the Poco had like an AMOLED display, then I would probably go with this one. But overall display quality, I think is better on the S10 here. Alright, both phones are running Android 11. We have MIUI, and then we have the One UI skin on here as well. With the Poco, we do have the Snapdragon 860 processor and Adreno 640. And we also have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. And we also have SD card support. On the S10, we do have the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. Micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM on that base model. They should be pretty much on par with each other in speed, and I will pull up those Geekbench scores. So let's actually just check them out and see how they compare. So let's see, and yeah, we get a slightly faster single core score, but the S10 actually has the better multi-core score. So that's pretty interesting. So this really comes down to One UI versus MIUI. So let's just go ahead and launch a few applications to get a feel here. So that was the Poco. So the Poco should be slightly faster, but I believe the S10 will beat this phone in RAM management. Yeah, so they're pretty much neck and neck, but it looks like the Poco is just going to be a tad bit faster because it does technically have, you know, an 860 over the 855. We got the S10 got in there first. Like I said, this can really go back and forth, really. But just know that as far as speed, if you're picking from a speed perspective or a power perspective, both of these phones are about the same in terms of power. So I really wouldn't, you know, get hooked up or get hung on, you know, the actual raw power of both phones. I would take into consideration One UI versus MIUI. I think that's something bigger to take into consideration. Let's launch PUBG. And just to show you what kind of settings you'll be working with if you are an actual gamer, you're getting great, you know, settings on both of these phones. So if you are a gamer, whether you decide to go an old flagship route or to go with this phone, you are getting excellent performance. Now, one of the things that the Poco does have over the S10, like I said, is games that support the high refresh rate. You know, you'll be able to take advantage of that. These are the settings that you will be working with here. So I'll just bring it up on the S10. It's the same exact settings. So we do have extreme FPS, and then we can actually go up to Ultra HD here. And it's the same thing for the Poco, I believe. Let me make sure and check. On the Poco, like I thought, it's the same exact thing. Extreme, and then we get our Ultra HD download as well. So like I said, the same exact gaming experience for both of these devices. Alright, so let's talk about your additional features and getting into the phone. So on the S10, we have two methods here. We have our physical fingerprint sensor, which I always think is much cooler experience to be able to just get into your phone like that than a physical one. But I think the physical ones are always going to be faster. It feels faster to me, at least. But the in-display one works great on the S10. You also have face unlock on the S10 as well, which is really nice. And on the Poco, like I said, I really love the physical fingerprint sensor. It works really great. And you also have the option to do face unlock on the Poco here. So when we talk about our additional features, especially with software, this is where the S10 kind of shines. So we have all our basic stuff, screen recording on here, but we also have secure folders on the S10, and we also have Samsung desktop experience as well as Dolby Atmos, NFC on here. Samsung Kids is a nice one to have. So you also have your wireless power sharing on the S10 as well. So basically what that means is I can charge, you know, another device here. I have to be over 30%, but if I wanted to like charge a pair of earbuds or charge another phone, I could do that on the S10. So our additional features on the Poco here, we don't really have much. I think the kind of unique thing about the Poco is that we have the Mi Remote. Basically the Poco has an IR blaster on it, so if I wanted to control like my TV with this phone, I would be able to do that, which I think is pretty cool as well. I think that's really slept on. But our basic stuff is on here as well. Screen recording is on here, but we are missing, you know, a few things. Like I said, NFC is on here, but we don't have like those really cool features like Samsung desktop support, or like the way Samsung does secure folders. I think is really clutch here. So definitely for additional features, you're getting a little bit more for your money with the S10 here. Let's check out the speakers. So you have stereo speakers on both here. Let's check them out, see which one sounds the best. Now the S10 is louder. I would definitely go with the S10 speakers here, and I think it's because we have the Dolby Atmos equalization on here, which is something that, you know, we lack on the Poco, I believe. So there is no like Dolby Atmos toggle on here, not that I remember. Yeah, not that I could find on here. Yeah, it's not on here. So we don't have that Dolby Atmos toggle. The Dolby Atmos really does enhance the sound of the speaker. So definitely the S10 was just louder and just a more crisp and clear sound here. Let's go ahead and discuss image quality. So the Poco does have a quad camera setup as compared to the S10's triple camera setup. So the Poco has a 48 megapixel standard, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, a 2 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel depth. It also shoots in 4K with a 20 megapixel selfie camera that only shoots in 1080p. And the Poco does take some pretty good photos, but I want to let you know right off the bat, just to give you a straightforward answer, the S10 is going to take slightly, well not slightly, I think the S10 actually takes much better photos than the Poco. And it's not saying that the Poco takes bad photos. You can see the Poco actually takes very good photos, especially for a mid-ranger. But the S10's cameras, to me, they just look better and they just perform. I just prefer the shots over the Poco almost always, but you do have a few cameras that you don't have on the S10, or really just the macro camera is just really fun to play with on the Poco. But yeah, so the Poco's cameras are pretty good. You can shoot in 1080p video on the selfie, and that's something that the S10 can do. I just think the overall S10's cameras just age extremely well here, and really you can add Gcam to the S10 camera and really get some amazing shots. But the S10 has a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. And that's why I tell people not to get hung up on megapixels, because it's really about image processing and the glass that goes in there. 4K video on the S10, 10 megapixel selfie, and that shoots in 4K. Overall, I'm 100% sure anybody that compares the cameras on these two phones, you will probably go with the S10 here. You just get cleaner shots on here, better image processing, colors come out better. Everything just came out to me just looking really sharp on the S10, and also I thought video was slightly better on the S10 as well. Shine. So the Poco has a massive 5160 milliamp battery with 33 watt charging. This phone has amazing battery life. It really lasts all day. It definitely will outlast the S10 easily. And also it charges faster than the S10 as well, which is something I absolutely love. So in the battery department, it's really no competition. The Poco is just going to kill it here. You do have on the S10 a much smaller 3400 milliamp battery with 15 watt charging. So if you're deciding between these two phones and battery is a big concern, the Poco's battery life is excellent. It's going to be much better. You do have like 15 watts is definitely slower than 33 watts. That's also something. But the S10 does have wireless charging. So I can't tell people how convenient it is to just be able to come home. You just put the phone down on a wireless charging pad and that's it. So it's very convenient to have that. The Poco does not have that wireless charging. But like I said, the 33 watts is pretty fast. So which one are you guys going with? The older flagship or the S10? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.